Okay, thank you very much. I hope you can all hear me. So I'm Willie Fraser. I work for the National Trust for Scotland. I'm the property manager at Kintail in West Affric. But I suppose today I'm actually probably going to talk with my chairmanship of the Affric Kintail Deer Management Group hat on. Because really that's where the collaboration comes in, where I'm coming from today. So I recognize a few names on the attendees, so I do apologize if I'm preaching to the converted or teaching you to suck eggs. So deer management groups, I've been involved, as I'm sure some of you have, with deer management for well over 30 years now. And in the past, deer management groups very much, you met twice a year, you had a nice lunch, had coffee, discussed how many deer you were going to shoot that season, how many deer you'd shot. And really that was pretty much what deer management groups entailed. And it was generally a mixture, predominantly private landowners and one or two government agencies and conservation agencies. In recent years, that's very much changed through both political pressure and the need to move forward and operate in a much more collaborative way. And nowadays, all deer management groups must have a deer management plan, and that's continuously assessed by SNH as to the delivery. And in recent years, that's in a 5-year plan, we've had 2 assessments. And that's really just to see how deer management groups are performing and delivering on government targets. So I'm the chair of the Affric Kintail group, and it extends from Kintail in the west right through to Cannock in the east, and takes in the Glen Affric woodlands, Five Sisters of Kintail, and it's a subgroup of the South Ross group, who I see Joanna's on the call there, she's there, that we're to the south of the Loch group. So as we developed plans, we realized we would keep deer at certainly at the center of a plan, but they're only part of a plan, how we collaborate. Now, we've got to think about, the different interests within a group. So in the Affric Kintail group, we've got private landowners, we've got government agencies and Forestry Land Scotland, and we've got NTS. So, and all these different groups have different management objectives, and with deer possibly at the center of conservation. So right away, we started looking at, how we're going to deliver on public interests. So that's, woodlands, conservation, public access. And we realized that, well, it's not really a deer management plan. So our current 5-year plan, which is coming to an end, is actually called a collaborative land management plan, with an emphasis possibly on deer management, because that dictates so much of the other conservation. And we've spent 5 years, in a sense, doing the information gathering, all the data, collecting data on deer numbers, doing habitat impact assessments, doing our peatland surveys, doing woodland surveys. And working collaboration has certainly meant that we can access funding that possibly as individual landowners we couldn't do previously. And that's helped us do the likes of the peatland survey. We've had £10,000 from in a grant from Forest Scotland to do a collaborative woodland management plan for the area. So these are all things we found we could access, but we needed to look wider than just the individual land holdings, and we look at how do we start engaging with communities. And that is something we're going to develop hopefully in the next stage of the plan. We've done our 5 years of information gathering, so to speak. And now we're looking at, in the next 5 years, we're really looking at how we deliver some of the government targets, the public interest. There's within Deer Management Plan, there's something like 101 different criteria that we have to take into consideration when it's assessed by SNH, sorry, not SNH now, Nature Scott. So there's a lot of aspects of that planning. In 5 years, we've had our difficulties because you can't take private landowners and conservation interests and government agencies and expect them all to agree. And one thing I learned as chairing a group like this, that no one's ever going to leave the room happy or ecstatic. What we generally have to look at is some form of compromise. And deer management in any area is a huge part of that, delivering your conservation objectives and indeed your sporting objectives if you're a private estate. So some of the things we've had to start looking at is how do we deliver deer management as a group? And traditional deer management, you have your estate boundary, and you shoot the deer that are within that boundary are yours to shoot. And you can either take a sporting cull, or if you're a conservation organizer, Forestland Scotland, you might be doing a reduction cull. But if in a whole area, if we all go for, if we're predominantly conservation organizations and you want to do a reduction cull, that's going to heavily impact on your other members of your group, which have sporting interests. So it was really a question about, we're trying to remove the boundaries. We're looking now at managing the whole area on a landscape scale and trying to take the various partners along with us. And we've opened that up to outside partners. So it's very much about stakeholder engagement. So we're now involved with organizations such as Trees for Life. We're trying to develop links with the community and how we might provide sporting opportunities or other opportunities for local communities. And that's something, we're going to hopefully take forward and explore funding. One of the interesting things that's come along in the last 2 years is, again, it's a project led by Trees for Life, and that's the East-West Wild Initiative, which again is looking at similar objectives as the Deer Management Group are looking at. So things are looking at, socio-economic interests. That I hate to use the sort of the rewilding word, because that tends to have, hares running in all directions and people, and I suppose the ultimate objective through Trees for Life would be some sort of rewilding program. But at the moment, it's really about how we, the potential to engage with communities, looking at ecotourism. So again, not having such a great emphasis on deer management in the traditional sporting situation, but possibly looking at how that can be integrated into ecotourism, looking at, business opportunities, small scale business opportunities that we could potentially develop with local communities. Sort of things that have come up in the last few weeks is, having a community deer larder in Canich, where we produce venison and sell it to a local market, which in the current climate is, has great potential. So there's various business opportunities that may arise, but we've got to this stage not without conflict. We've had some very heated discussions. We've hit the press in the last 6 years for through overculling of deer in certain areas, and it's taken a long time. It's taken probably 7 or 8 years to get to where we are now, where we've got people actually talking and actually realizing that we can't stay the way we are, as a deer, both as landowners on a wider scale, and that we have to look differently on how we manage on a landscape scale. So, and again, going back to sort of removing boundaries, we're looking at potential for the estates have sporting aspirations and need a sporting cull, that we provide the estates that don't require a sporting cull, or it's not such a need. We can provide a sporting aspirations for them, in that they will come take their guests onto other properties and shoot deer to actually achieve their sporting cull, but reduce deer numbers over the overall management area. So these sort of things we've been doing. We're now, we've signed up with to the Trees for Life East-West Wild Partnership as an organisation, NTS, and I'm hoping next week that as a deer group, after further discussions, we will sign up to the initial stage of that East-West Wild Partnership. Now, East-West Wild covers a much bigger area than the Affric Kintail Deer Management Group. As a matter of fact, it's probably I will try and I'm a bit of a technophobe, but I will try and share a screen here. I'll stick that one up and I'll share that. Can everyone see that? Can you see that? Is that sharing?
Yeah, we can see that.
No? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So that's the circular area is the sort of aspiration of East-West Wild. And if I zoom in, you can see the Affric Kintail area, which I don't think I can go any closer. So it covers from Morvich through to Glen Affric, down into Tonic, up to Loch Malardach in the north, and then it's really the sort of ridge north of the A87 is covered there. So that's the Affric Kintail area, which is really, if you look at it, it's at the centre of the East-West Wild Partnership, or potential partnership. Now, we've taken possibly 7 years to get to where we are. And if you look at that, that's quite a small area. To get a collaboration in the area that's circled by East-West Wild, it's going to be a huge achievement. And to get people on board, you need to demonstrate that you can actually achieve what you say you're going to achieve. And you've got to have demonstrative projects. So we see ourselves as a facility, an already established group that could potentially demonstrate some of these projects, which would encourage other landowners, other interests to come on board in the future with the East-West Wild project. We are not East-West Wild as a group, but we've got similar, in some areas, we've got similar aspirations. So we feel that we can possibly run in parallel and as part of that project. But, you know, I think the biggest challenge for any sort of landscape scale management is actually getting the buy-in and getting that sort of consensus between the various interests, whether it's community, whether it's landowners, whether it's NGOs or, you know, other charities. So I think it can be done. I'm not sure it's ready to be done on this right now on the scale of East-West Wild, but it's certainly, you know, we would like to view that Affric Kintail can take some sort of project forward and demonstrate that that sort of collaborative land management can work.